part of our Horrors of Society series. We're talking about the phenomenal film, possibly #1 film of our year, Sinners. It really is no end to the things that have, like, the thought that has gone into this. It's really brilliant. And I know it's like super been hyped up, but for once, like, believe the hype and let it be hype. Like, don't think that you're cooler than everyone. And like, you're wrong. Like, if you're not like appreciating this in some level, like, you're wrong. Like, that's just it.
Yeah, even if it's just like you go on your like cinematography, like amazing. Like, even if that's all you take away from it, you have to at least give it that.
Yeah, acting, and it's like it's the moment. It's the moment as well. Like, just like let it in. But why don't we hop in so that we can at least try to get not so far over. So we're talking about Sinners, which came out this year, 2025, and it's about trying to leave their troubled lives behind. Twin brothers return to their hometown to start again, only to discover that an even greater evil is waiting to welcome them back. And it's directed by Ryan Coogler. Amazing. 10 out of 10. He's also so fun to watch in interviews. He's so sweet. Like, oh, I want to be your friend. Anyway, Ryan Coogler's Sinners feels like 2 movies in one, and both are phenomenal pieces of media. It's like I like left it here, like, we just watched 2 movies and both of them are amazing.
Yeah.
And it at once is a beautiful, heartbreaking, and emotional depiction of Jim Crow era America, and a charming, hilarious, and horrific exploration of faith, culture, and folklore. It's a vampire story, and it's a period piece.
Yeah.
It's perfect in both of those genres, which, you know, who knew? The film starts by introducing us to the history of talented musicians throughout different cultures whose music is powerful enough to reach across the veil and through time. Essentially like griots. I'm sure there are other words for the different places. So this is a power that is shared around the world and seen in West Africa, Ireland, China, and in our indigenous cultures in the Americas. And we learn of the power of music and its ability to straddle both sides of our experiences, one foot firmly in reality, the other in mysticism. And you know, I love magical realism. So Sinners follows the talented blues musician Sammie on the day that changed his life forever. After the arrival of his twin notorious uncles Smoke and Stack also, honestly. Sammie finds himself in the middle of a battle for true freedom in a world that fights to deny him and his community of that in every way. Like, my Freudian slip really got me there. It's like,
yeah.
It's like, and snack. Smoke and Stack take Sammie under their well-tailored wings as they assemble the final pieces to open their juke joint. Finally home from war, a shady history, and even shadier dealings with various mobs in Chicago, the brothers are bleeding money into their community in a hope to find stability back home. Sammie, the son of a preacher, jumps at this new opportunity to showcase his talent and true love, the blues. Even though people are like, what do you know about the blues? You're just a little boy. And then he's like, it's called soul. It's called living, you know?
Actually, I'm amazing at it. So.
Yeah. Didn't you know? The first part of the film, what feels like its own movie, follows this trio as they divide and conquer to find musicians, food, a new sign, performers, and barkeeps for the opening night. Smoke and Snack enlists the help from Delta Slim, who's an old drunkard musician who's a staple in the community of nightlife. Grace and Bo Chow, the Chinese immigrant grocery store owners who operate on both sides of the street, the colored and the white side. And Cornbread, an honest man working the fields to feed his family, who signs on as their bouncer. Love also offers us insights into the minds and histories of these men. Stack's forbidden love with the white-passing Mary, who, after their relationship abruptly ended with Stack leaving for Chicago, is now living as a married white woman. Luxury. Smoke enlists the help of his love, Annie, who is a pillar of the community, providing them with ointments and healing remedies based in the West African Hoodoo traditions. And Smoke and Annie had lost their infant daughter before he fled to Chicago. And that kind of history comes through as well. And lastly, Sammie meets the flirtatious and married Pearline, who attends the juke joint for a night of freedom and to sing. Soon the audience is introduced to the second part of the movie, when a burning man seemingly falls from the sky into our frame. He hobbles to a lone country home and pleads with the white folk inside to let him in, which they do despite warnings from the indigenous tribe, leading to their vampires. The indigenous tribe was like, well, we tried. Goodbye. It's not, not theirs. A lot of people are like, I want to know more about them. I was like, leave them alone. I was like, I know. I don't need it. Like, they were plenty on the screen.
And they said a lot.
They did.
The very few seconds, which I'll talk about a little bit, but like they said a lot just with the few seconds that they were there.
And they were like, I tried. Rather, I tried my best. You can't blame them, honestly. Yeah. Anyone who's like, I wish they came back in the end. I was like, for what? It's not their job.
Yeah.
It's like they did what they did, you know? Like, Now fully moving into the second half, which might as well be the second film, the juke joint is in full swing with laughter, music, sweat, and history emanating. Smoke and Stack argue over their women, their misdeeds, and the doomed future of their financial endeavor, while Sammie discovers himself in all the ways that matter, singing his heart out and making love to a woman. He was living, right? When Sammie plays a heartfelt blues ballad that thins the veil, he invites spirits from the past and future into the space. It's one of the most amazing scenes and very unexpected and fits. So it was like, honestly, tearing. You're gonna probably cry.
Chills giving
in this movie. And this is one of those moments that I was like, oh, but it is so profound. It's so powerful that all of these, like, again, past and present and future are here. And you see like how important and beautiful music is to these different cultures in the ways that they express themselves, the way that they connect to each other, the way that they celebrate and love and feel pain, and all of that is happening in that moment. And so it lures vampire Remick to their haven where he wishes to partake in the magic himself. Right? Like we're all family, right? To him, the word clan has a different meaning. In Ireland,
sure does.
Family is clan.
Yeah.
That's your clan, right? So he's like with a C. Yeah, we clan with a C. The second part of the film is gory, sticky, hilarious, and emotional as these people fight not only for their right to exist, but to enjoy themselves. It's a brilliant ode to Black history and culture in all its messy imperfections and complexities, exploring religion, families, allies, and legacy. I generally don't know if anything that I say in this episode will necessarily be new or exciting to you, but I wanted to use the time as an opportunity for me to simply fangirl about all the aspects of this film that I truly admire and appreciate. And all is a stretch. This was the first thing I wrote, and then as I was going, I was like, and I can't do that, and I can't talk about that. I'm running out of time.
Yeah.
So this is a list that, mind you, is ever growing, right? So I invite you to share your theories, thoughts, and feelings about the film with us. I am so excited to hear what you have to say, and I hope that you enjoy what I have to say. Right? So right out the gate, I want to talk about Satan fallen like lightning from heaven. So since this is a horror film, let's start by talking about our villains. And it's plural because, as most horror films teach us, villains come in all forms and are often more complex than we give them credit for.
Yeah, anyone can be evil.
Yeah, anyone could be. And it's not even just evil, right? It's like anyone could be corrupt or self-serving or manipulative or hedonistic. Yeah, like everybody got something going on, you know? And I think like being really truthful about villains where we don't just like smack a one-dimensional label on them like they're bad. Remick is so complex that I think like it's beautiful the way that he's there. Like he is the villain. He is evil. Yeah, 100%. Nobody is like, maybe the white man's nice. No. He's eating people, okay? Yeah. He's stealing people, right? He's stealing their futures, right? But like his motivations and what brought him there and like what his desires are, like those things are really important as well in adding that dimension to his character. So Remick, who is the obvious villain, and is a villain, and leader of the vampires, is a charming man who preys on people in a very specific way. he knows what they want to hear, right? So he uses prejudice against the native people to capture Burton Jones' pity, right? Where he sees the clan hood and he's just like, these Indians are coming out to get me, you know, like using like their words, their fears to get into their home, right? And then feigning like this appalled reaction to being accused of being clan to appease the black folk in the club. So when they're like, you clan? And he's like, clan. And like his reaction is so brilliant too, because you can see he's like, I know what you mean. You mean K clan, right? But again, Irishman, C clan is family. So that's when he's like, we all family. No, literally there's two clan people right next to you with the little but he is a complex individual, and while he may have been genuinely disappointed at being labeled a Klansman, he had no qualms on leaning on that assumption earlier in the film. But he picking and choosing, right? He is a skilled con man with the ability to sway his victims. He knows what to say.
Chaos in his eyes.
This is not his first rodeo. It's not his first juke joint. He got a lot of people there. And something I truly appreciated in the film was the fact that Remick is an Irishman. Firstly, in naming Ireland as one of the countries with folklore attached to music and identifying it as a culture of oppression. Like in the beginning, when we're learning about all the different cultures around the world that use that music to cross the veil, those griots, Ireland is one of them, right? Yeah. They have had their language, their culture, their history, their religion stolen from them, right? And so that is an important part of who Remick is and why it does cast him in a different light than like a generic villain, because the girl has layers. He's got a lot going on here. Like I do genuinely think he, as much as he's like, okay, yeah, I'll like pretend to be a Klansman to get into the house of these people, I do think there's probably a part of him that also despises the clan. Like he's like, I'll help you kill him. I'll go over there right now. Right? But I think
they don't deserve to live forever. Yeah.
If the clan had, you know, beautiful music and he was trying to get in with them, I'm sure he'd be like, I'll go down to a juke joint with you. You know, like he'd be flip-flopping. He lived too long and too alone, I think, to really be genuine about the feelings
from his family.
Yes. And in that emotional ending, with Sammie attempting to use the religion of his father, that his father claims can save him, and that he had been fighting under the shadow of, Remick laughs, citing his own torrid history with the words, right? Like that his people's religion was taken over by this one, right? And he shares that, right? That his people had met the same fate to the black folk that are here, their history and culture demonized and their community forcibly converted. And while trying to assimilate Sammie and the others for his own gain. Okay? Like he's like, this is what happened to me. Meanwhile, I learned a thing or two. So we see you, girl. It's not cute. There's also something to be said here, just like as a sidebar, when we're talking about religion, that Annie's faith was the only true protector in the film, right? Like with the necklace for Smoke, and the various remedies for haints and vampires that the group and the club are quick to equip. I also love that. Love that no one was like, what's a haint? They were like, hey, give me the garlic, you know? I love that we didn't have to spend any time being like, what's a vampire? They were like, no, here you go. Like you
the
saw,
holy water didn't defeat him. It was the other stuff.
She was like, you saw that man dead. He got up. He left. We know something's up. Like you don't need to, you know,
hurt him, but did not kill him. Yeah.
Right. And I think like that's so important, is that her stuff had even kind of sway, right? Her stuff was correct. Her stuff was powerful versus Christianity that didn't save anyone. Right. Yeah. But the Hoodoo certainly kept folks safe. Like, that prayer at the end for Sammie did not save his life, right?
No.
It's also important that Remick fell from the sky of flames, just as an angel cast from heaven. Hello, Lucifer. Okay. And exploring this complicated relationship with religion, Remick fulfills the role of tempting and charming Sam, right? He is known for his beguiling charm and offer of true freedom. And like his history is really interesting. So there's actually the Spotify page for the Sinner soundtrack provides us with some fun history and Easter eggs. So if you go to Spotify, you go to the soundtrack and you scroll down to like the info, which usually has like the bio of like the artist or whatever, but you cycle through, there's like pictures, and then there's these newspaper articles. And these newspaper articles, there's one that offers a glimpse into Remick's first fiery arrival. Yeah. It's the Boston Daily Journal front page, and it shares a grisly discovery at Boston Harbor, where an immigrant ship was wrecked and featured no survivors. It's called the Celtic Hare, and it arrived at the dock with a ship full of blood-soaked wood, burned remnants, and no bodies. There's like parts, but no bodies, like full. Witnesses report seeing strange flickering lights and hearing music the night before. And as cops investigate, a woman reports that she saw a lone man fleeing the scene, his skin reportedly smoking as he disappeared into the shadows. And just as Dracula crossed the sea on the Demeter, this is how Remick found his way to the States. And clearly he'd been a vampire long before we met the twins, and he's been around for about 600 years. Even before he got here, you know? Yeah. In those last moments of the film, where older Sammie shares with, this is spoilers. Honestly, you should know by now, Spoilerville. Please watch the film and then come and talk to us. But when older Sammie shares with Vampire Stack and Mary that while that night had been the worst of his life, nightmares still haunt him, like even in this old age, right? Yeah. Until the sun went down, it was also the best day of his life. And for Smoke and Stack and the other folk in that juke joint, for a few moments they were truly free, right? And that's the like heartbreaking part. Like Stack admits that too, right? It was a freedom that, whether vampires really existed and visited them that night, was doomed for failure. Like their freedom was only ever fleeting. Because had Remick never been summoned by Sammie's siren song, the clan would have come for them in the morning. Had the clan never made it or been defeated, the angry Italian and Irish mobsters of Chicago were certain to find their way to the brothers for their retribution. That juke joint was not going to last. Right? Like nothing about, like it was always going to be lightning in a bottle, that one moment of joy. They were not allowed to have more than that. Because those boys were always dead man walking on borrowed time, which is why I feel Remick isn't the exclusive villain of this story. It always, unfortunately, boils down to society in the end, right? I'd even name the plantation and factory owners as villains too for creating a company town economy, robbing their workers of real currency, right? Like their juke joint wasn't going to last because people didn't have money. They didn't have real money. They had pretend plantation money.
And they deserve so much more than a day. It made me super sad. I cried about it for like...
Yes. Yeah. I mean, this is when we talk about reparations, right? Like yeah, they were free, but they weren't free. Like they were free in name only, right? But circumstances, like they were still set up to be enslaved in a different way. Jim Crow, right? And even today we have new Jim Crow. We have our incarceration system, right? We have our education to prison pipeline here. Like those things are like the evolution of this attempt to play at freedom when it really was never an option. So I think like it's such like when we're seeing that scene of like the music past, present, future in that space, like it's also thinking of like who people are in those moments needing that music, needing to touch the veil, like the emotion that is necessary to bridge that gap, right? And the fact that it is present throughout the future is important too, right? That those feelings are still relevant, in this crazy envisioned future that like Smoke and Stack could never have imagined, and that Stack got to kind of live through. So yeah, I think there's so much to say, and there are so many villains, I think, just like literally society, the Jim Crow era, right? The religious aspect of it, Smoke and Stack's father, the whatever took their baby girl, like all of those things are also villains in this story. Not to discredit Remick though, he'd be number one. He'd be out there, he'd be doing it. Moving on, I want to talk about how much is a soul worth. In the final end credit scene of the film, we see Sammie playing there's 2 end credit scenes, right? So the one I just referenced was old Sammie talking to vampire Stack and Mary and finding out that they survived. They ran off, right? The second one sees Sammie playing a traditional gospel song, but with his own blues twist in the chapel his father runs. This is clearly before the event. He doesn't have any scars. And he's smiling along, playing something that he loves in a place that he loves, right? And at one point he looks up and he smiles at someone or something that the audience can't see. And this short scene has spurred many theories and ideas behind Sammie's character and influence. And the prevailing theory lingers around the tale of Robert Johnson, who is a musician who sold his soul to the devil. Folklore, right? As the story goes, Johnson was an ordinary Mississippi man with mediocre guitar skills who one drunken, cool night found himself at a literal crossroads. A mysterious man sitting on the side of the road with his sickly dog and who somehow knew Johnson offers him talent, the opportunity to be the king of the Delta blues, to have all the whiskey and women he could dream of. And Johnson agrees, needing to have that sound of blues in him, and readily signs away his soul. He's like, absolutely, I need that sound. I need that, right? The man is understood to have been the devil, or to others, Papa Legba, which is also important because he also operates the crossroads. It would be a different kind of exchange, I think, if we're thinking of Papa Legba versus the devil in like Christianity sense. But I think both are credible for your idea of what happened to him. So then Johnson went on to live a complicated life of loss, using his talent to find moments of pleasure before dying at the young age of 27. And there is like the 27 Club where a lot of young musicians die at 27. And so there is like this theory that maybe all the ones who have done that also sold their soul. And that's kind of the thing. I think it's like Kurt Cobain died at 27. All these like really talented musicians that, you know, came in, you know, like thunder in a bottle themselves, living in a bottle themselves, then, you know, quickly gone away. But he like overnight became really amazing. So it really is like the truth of what happened to Johnson will always be a mystery, right? How this man went from nobody with a guitar to the father of blues with a sound that perplexed historians even now. They're like, how did he make this one guitar sound like a band? Like, how did he create this song after like just a few months of not being here? And the man had embraced the tale, actually, of him having sold his soul, often referencing hoodoo and temptation in his lyrics. And it's no stretch to see the inspiration of this folktale on Sammie's character, who is a young boy running from his own religious upbringing and finding his way out through the corrupt and evil blues. However, I feel that when we align Sammie's skills with a corrupting evil force, we're minimizing his innate talent and inspiration. Like, I get it. I do think like Coogler was using the Robert Johnson tale as inspiration for who Sammie is. But I think saying that last scene is him selling his soul to the devil is so reductive of like who Sammie was. It's like discrediting his talent and his ability and his love too, right? First of all, how did the devil get in that church? How he walking in there? But like he is a complex individual, and he's in no way like like the church boy, you know, or he is not this, you know, he was not this like perfect being that then was corrupted by music. He was a normal person with desires and love and aspirations who also had a talent that his dad just didn't understand. The film is called Sinners because it's full of that, right? A whole juke joint of sinners and complicated folk who all need a win. And Sammie is no different, but he's just not evil.
Music doesn't corrupt people. Capitalism does.
Right.
He can have that power just in him without having to sell his soul. Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's also, to me, is like when we're looking at, again, that moment where we're seeing the different, like the past, present, future, when we're talking about those griots and their ability to connect and reach across the veil, are we saying that every one of those sold their soul? And like, what is that? Right? Like, no, it's that their soul was so profound Their soul was so connected. They were so unique and beautiful inside that they have that skill versus some shady force, right? And I think of his father, who so adamantly believed that the guitar was a corrupting force. And while I do believe he was right to be suspicious of the goings on at the juke joint, right? It's a whole lot of sinning. Okay, a lot of married people doing unmarried stuff, right? Yeah. A lot of just a lot of sin happening, right? But his real fear, like his father's fear, came from the fact that he had to watch his son play the guitar that belonged to his dead evil brother, right? We learned that in the end, that Sammie this whole time has been playing the guitar of his uncle, who was evil. He was known to be evil. So imagine knowing the fate of your kin, right? Your brother, tying it to something as practical as music, and then watching your son not only indulge in that music, but play the very same instrument. Of course he thinks he's being corrupted. Like he's fearing for his soul because he probably is wrestling with the fact that he couldn't save his brother. Right. And so like, that's like reflected, like it is from a place of care. I genuinely think like he loved and cared for his son, and he was worried for his soul. Right. Especially if you're religious. Right. And in the same way that Christianity did fuck all to protect anyone in this film, I think the devil has little to do with it too. Like I think like Jesus nor Satan were there. Neither one of them were hanging out, right? It's not the prayer that stops Remick from biting Sammie. It's his silver guitar, right? Flat out, right? Because it is Sammie's music and his natural connection to the veil that are what save him, right? And in the end, when offered redemption, and after enduring the most intense, traumatic, I told you so ass moment from his dad, like, I told you it's going to be sin. Look at you. Everybody did. Right? Which, like, could turn any sinner into a born again Christian, right? Yeah. Sammie still chooses the music because it's not a religious thing. Like, it is religion, right? His music is religion to him. That is his connection.
Yeah, Christianity isn't the only one.
Yeah. How are you going to tell this boy that that's not him communing with spirit in the way that the chorus and the choir in his church is doing? Because the music is the healing force the whole way through. Not only in grand moments of reaching across time, but also in those soft moments of connection, like in the car, in singing at the train station, in the chanting at the railroad. Like every single time we see people singing in this movie, first of all, you want to cry, right? Yeah. But there are these moments where you see like joy, you see like a connection of like, oh, you understand what is a very unique, painful experience that we're enduring, right? We can connect and feel like we're not just reaching across the veil, we're reaching across the aisle, we're reaching across the room. Yeah. We're touching each other, like coming together in this moment, because the power and community of music was always there for us, even in the darkest parts where religion and the devil himself couldn't be found.
Yeah.
So those are like the big things. Now, and another thing. So I could genuinely write an entire book about all the parts of Sinners that you could learn from. And this film will most certainly have its own chapter when the Ghouls eventually write their own book about media, if not two. Yeah. Right? And Kat did find this very helpful syllabus that we're sharing in our blog for you to dig into further as well, the Sinners movie syllabus. But since I don't have a whole book or even a chapter's worth of time to dive into every part of the film that moves me, let me just crash through some final points. So first is Haint Blue and other music. So firstly, as I've mentioned in a few ways throughout my section, I find it so important that Annie's faith and the impact of griots was the root of power in this film. Religion certainly has its place and can be a powerful force. Even Christianity, like, you know, for all the villainy that comes from Catholicism, Christianity, and all of that, it can still have genuine power and goodness in it, right? I personally have always had a complicated relationship with Christianity, especially with its history of oppressing indigenous practices. Like, it sometimes really boggles my mind that it's like it was used as a defense for slavery, like in favor of slavery. It was forced upon the enslaved people, and then they accept it, and now we have a lot of like Black and Latina communities who use it as their practice, right? Like we have so many Catholic Hispanic people. And I'm like, those are the colonizers. That's the colonizer religion.
Yeah.
Like we were Taina. Like, so I do have a really hard time sometimes with that, where I'm just like, that's not yours. Why do you believe in that? But also, like, sometimes we just need that, you know?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not really about that. It's about something else.
Well, yeah,
So,
like being detached from your true religion and having to
you need something.
Find something somewhere.
Yeah. And I will say that our current day, like, practices are an amalgamation of a lot of different religions and histories. And so, like, there are practices where you're like, that's definitely Hoodoo. like you're eating the body of Christ.
Yeah. You're
drinking his blood. Okay, tell me that's not Hoodoo. So I was like, are you kidding me? Anyway, so I absolutely, like, not to knock people who are religious. Absolutely, right? Like, it just, to me, is always like a complicated thing in my brain. I digress. What I want to focus on was the idea of Haints and Hoodoo in the film. So Annie at first believes Mary and the others to be Haints, which are evil spirits who escape their human forms at night to paralyze, injure, ride like a horse, or even kill innocent victims. There's so much history and influence in this film that it makes me scream that I don't have all the time in the world to go over it. But in an article titled "That Ain't No Haint, Sinner's Movie References Evil Spirits, but What Is It Exactly?" on USA Today, they explain the use of Haint blue to trick Haints into believing they stumbled into the water or the sky, which they're unable to move through, as this color that was first produced on indigo plantations across South Carolina and is utilized by Coogler in the film. Like, Smoke is wearing Haint blue. And he's protected. Right? The Haints ain't getting him.
Yes, the bag and the color. Yeah.
Right. Ultimately, I think it's amazing that Annie was our hero in more ways than one. A Hoodoo priestess, dark skins, thick love interest, honest mother, community pillar. I live. I'm just like, for her existing, like, in the screen and being, like, vulnerable and beautiful and desired and, like, being the one. And she was like, I'm talking to you. Don't talk to him. We're having a conversation, you know? And she's the one defining, like, we're family, blah, blah, you know? So I just really appreciate, like, the Hoodoo and the Haints and the, that being the powerful piece. So just look up that article. The other thing I want to say is Grace had every right, and you can fight me. And I know people will, and it's okay. We can have a conversation. So the Chinese allies are super important in this film, especially where the film takes place, which has a rich history of Chinese immigrants who at first were expected to work the fields, but later became the proprietors of groceries in the region. Like, that's real. There's really cool documentaries about that. They were deeply connected to the Black community, and the Asian community has a history of being allies, fighting alongside Black Americans for civil rights. Like, they have always been there, genuinely. I actually just wrote an article about an art exhibit here in Philly that links the music movements of Asian Americans to their activist work alongside Black and Brown people in the 50s through 80s for social justice. They've always been there. And while the topic is currently tumultuous, with some Asian folks having sided with the idea of removing DEI because they believe that would somehow benefit them, and by extension, the history of removing themselves from battles when the attacks turn to them, like, that is something that is well known, right? Like, they definitely have been there, you know, like, they are part of the Rainbow Coalition. They were very vocal allies and community members for a long time. And then some folks, you know, are like, this ain't my battle. So I get, like, that's why they're there. That's why we have Grace and Bo, right? So this all leads me to Grace's supposed betrayal, which I don't really see as a betrayal at all. In so many ways, Grace and Bo were seen as allies and as members of the community, but they were never seen as family, right? When Annie and them are at the door, and he's like, what about her? Remick says to Mary, because you like her. And Annie goes, oh, she's family, right? Grace and Bo ain't nowhere in that. They are not invited to the door. They are not a part of that line of defense. They are afterthoughts, right? So Grace had every right to be like, I'm not really here, right? This ain't my battle, right? She had every right to urge Bo to leave. And she had all the reason to protect her daughter. Yes, the sun was going to come up, but there was no guarantee that they weren't going to send some vampires off before the end of the night to kill her daughter, or worse, to wait until the next day. Like, there's no guarantee that they would all go up in the sun. They could have run away,
Yeah.
right? With their power, either they were all going to have to die that night, or the whole town would be vampires by the end of the month, maybe even the week. Like, they were a threat.
Yeah.
Like, they were an illness that was about to infect the entire town. And Grace saw that, right? Second he started speaking in her language, she was like, oh no. No. Like, talk about, like, if you like are tied to a religion or a history or something like that, that really does evoke something so terrifying. Like, that ain't natural. I know that's wrong. You right? Like,
yeah.
Second, she tried to reason with Smoke, and he wasn't hearing it, right? She really had no choice. Like, at that point, like, I get it. People are like, she didn't have to invite them all in. She was at, first of all, at the end of her rope. She's allowed. She's allowed to act crazy, right? Second, she tried. She really did call him out. She was like, you could shoot a man in the street for attempted robbery, but you couldn't kill a literal monster because it wore your brother's face, right? Like, yeah, my kid is out there and is in danger, and you can't show up all of a sudden. She was at her wit's end, and forcing their hand made all the sense to her. So you can absolutely go on hating Grace. I get it, but I do think you're wrong. I will defend her. I don't think that's what Coogler was attempting to do. I don't think he wanted her to be a villain. I think he wanted it to make sense and that she would speak from her experience. You know, I think, like, that was realistic. Finally, happily ever after. My last note is Stack got to live forever with Mary since they couldn't live together in their time. Their love was forbidden in this lifetime in so many ways, not just in their perceived races, but also with Stack's sordid history and a past that was bound to catch up, right? This was their only option for a happy ending, them being vampires and living to a time when they would be allowed to be together, right?
Yeah.
On the other hand, Elijah, right? Don't bring that smoke near the baby. And Annie got to be ancestors. Smoke finally got to rest, no longer in charge of his brother's well-being and able to be with the woman he loves, but couldn't be with because of pain, grief, and his own history that was going to catch up to him, right? So now he and Annie can continue protecting those they love from the other side and with the person they lost, their daughter. And to me, both brothers got their happy endings, and in their deaths, they got to be truly free. Just as the last note is just go and read Black Girl Watching's piece in Sinners the Deaths Feel Like a Metaphor. Go read it on Substack and subscribe. They're amazing. To get a brilliant deep dive on the movie, including more about the importance and power of the music in the film, how Remick wanting your stories, your songs is a metaphor for the music industry preying on grayos. She goes into the dangers of Mary, a perceived white woman who selfishly jeopardizes the lives of all the black folk in the June joint. And so much more, right? She has also thoughts on assimilation, appropriation, and the theme of freedom. And I really highly recommend, if you want even more of a deep dive on top of the other deep dives, I'm sure you already do it. That was mine.
Yeah, I feel like everyone's talking about, like, most of my social media has been, like, people talking about Sinners or geeking out about Sinners or trying to, like, point out something that they caught that they don't know if other people caught from Sinners. So
it's so reasonable.
Like,
yes. Yeah. I mean,